Not seeing my videos in your subscription feed? Make sure you've clicked the little bell next to the subscribe button to be notified of all my newest uploads.
Hey, what's up people? Pizzal here, and I'm going to talk to you guys about the new Arrow Video Blu-ray release for 1988's Brain Damage, written and directed by Frank Henenlotter. Now this is partially going to be a review of the movie as well as a review of the Blu-ray release. And now it goes without saying, if you're familiar with the work of Frank Henenlotter, that Brain Damage, it's not going to be your average everyday horror movie. And not one that's easily summed up in just a simple sentence or two, but I'll give it the old college try. Brain Damage centers around a young man by the name of Brian, who wakes one morning to find himself host to a brain-sucking, slug-like parasite by the name of Elmer. And Elmer is constantly attached to Brian's body and occasionally injects directly into his brain this blue juice, as Elmer calls it, that gets Brian really high. He goes out into the streets of New York City just tripping out, having a great time, and while he's on this this magic carpet ride, so to speak, Elmer is out there sucking the brains out of random strangers in New York City. Also, did I mention that Elmer is voiced by the late Chiller Theater host Zachary? Now, once Brian realizes that Elmer is out there sucking the brains out of random strangers, he decides he's going to try and kick the habit, so to speak, even though Elmer tells him that, you can't. I own you now. I own you. You're addicted to my juice, and if you try to kick the habit, then it won't work out very well for you, which leads to this really nice sequence in this dingy flop house where Brian is trying to kick the habit, and he's going through these horrible withdrawals and puking all over himself and just not having a very good time. The whole time this is happening, Elmer, the slug-like, brain-sucking parasite who's voiced by Zachary, is dancing around in a sink, singing very happy show tunes, mocking Brian and his awful anguish and suffering as he's withdrawing from Elmer's juice. So the parallels between the juice and drug addiction is clearly there. And while Brain Damage tackles some pretty heavy subjects like drug addiction and some of the perils of drug addiction, such as alienating your family, alienating your friends, alienating your girlfriend, being sort of taken over by this sinister power that owns you, it handles all this very heavy subject matter in a very light, over the top, very much Frank Henenlotter kind of way. Now the Elmer brain-sucking, slug-like parasite that's voiced by Zachary is, how to describe it and keep it PG, I don't know if I can, to be perfectly honest. It's very phallic, put it that way, intentionally phallic. There's some great gags in the movie involving Elmer sucking people's brains out. There's one in particular, again, I've got to try and describe this sequence as PG as possible. Brian, who is completely tripping out, goes into this punk club. He meets this woman. The woman leads him outside into this, I don't know if it's an alley or like some sort of boiler room type setting, I'm not sure, to have an intimate encounter. And during the intimate encounter, Elmer sucks the brains out of this woman's head through her mouth. Pretty good stuff. And now Brain Damage is a really well-made, low-budget, over-the-top horror movie. Practically, I would even say it's kind of a body horror movie as well. The acting is great all around. Rick Herbst, who plays Brian in this movie, does an absolutely fantastic job. A great
performance from him. I love the setting. It's late 80s New York City, so it's got that kind of urban squalor, kind of grimy sort of feel about the movie, which just perfectly plays into the themes of Brain Damage.
The effects in the movie, including Elmer, are fantastic, handled by Gabe Bartalos. This is just a really fun, well-made movie. If you're a fan of Frank Henenlotter movies, I'm talking about Basket Case, Frankenhooker, Brain Damage is definitely right up your alley. Now, I'd first seen Brain Damage years and years ago, rented it from the video store, and I absolutely loved it. Now, rewatching it on this Arrow Blu-ray was a lot of fun because I'd forgotten a lot about Brain Damage. I remembered that it was a lot of fun, that it was very much Henenlotter, but the Blu-ray from Arrow Video was a great reminder of just how much fun Brain Damage is. I highly recommend it. If you've not seen Brain Damage and you are a fan of Frank Henenlotter movies, by all means you should go out and see Brain Damage. If you've never heard of Brain Damage before and you want a different kind of horror movie, certainly look in to Brain Damage, and you can't go wrong with the Arrow Video Blu-ray release, which just hit shelves, I want to say, within the past week or two. The picture quality and the sound quality on it both look absolutely fantastic. The picture quality and the sound quality, I would say, are superb on this release. As far as extras are concerned, we've got a 54-minute making of documentary entitled Listen to the Light, The Making of Brain Damage. It's a brand new documentary featuring interviews with actor Rick Herbst, producer Edgar Ivans, I'm sorry, editor Jack Newell, first AD Greg Lamberson, special effects makeup artist Gabe Bartalos, visual effects supervisor Al Magliochetti, makeup effects artist Dan Fry, but no Frank Henenlotter on this making of. I thought that was odd. Ivans discusses how driven Frank Henenlotter was as a filmmaker. He discusses how they got funding for the film. Bartalos discusses his early years in the makeup effects business and getting hired by Frank Henenlotter for Brain Damage and loving the concept of the film with the brain-sucking, parasitic, eel creature. Magliochetti and Bartalos discuss developing and creating the Elmer creature and how Henenlotter encouraged them to make it more and more phallus-like. They discuss Zachary, the host of Chiller Theater, doing the voice for Elmer. Herbst discusses being cast in the film, his first feature film, by the way, and that he used the lyrics of Pink Floyd songs as inspirations for all the sequences when he was going around tripping out of his mind on Elmer's juice. They discuss how rough the area was where they shot the movie. They describe it as hooker central, and that every morning when they would arrive at the location, that the ground was covered in used condoms and crack pipes. So, great neighborhood. They discuss the edited version of Brain Damage that was released theatrically and on home video and all the sequences that were cut out of that version. They discuss the film's cult status and how the audience for Brain Damage has grown over the years. Very nice 54-minute making of documentary about the making of Brain Damage. I would say the only thing missing from this documentary, of course, would be Frank Henenlotter himself. But other than that, pretty much anything and everything you could possibly want to know about the making of Brain Damage is on this documentary. Really nice documentary for Brain Damage. Next up, we have got the effects of Brain Damage with Gabe Bartalos. It's about 10 minutes in length. Mr. Bartalos discusses the effects of Brain Damage and how they pulled them off with lots of behind-the-scenes footage, including designing and creating the Elmer creature. Very nice interview there with Mr. Bartalos. We've got Animating Elmer with Al Magliochetti. It's about 6.5 minutes in length. Mr. Magliochetti discusses the stop motion and animation effects that he created for the film. Next up, we have Karen Ogle, a look back. It's about 4.5 minutes in length. She was the still photographer, script supervisor, and assistant editor on Brain Damage. She discusses her fond memories of working on the film, working with Frank Henenlotter and Gabe Bartalos. She discusses first meeting Henenlotter, the technical aspects of shooting on-set still photographs, her duties as script supervisor, etc., etc. Next up, we've got Elmer's Turf, the New York City locations of Brain Damage, in which Mike Gingold, along with Frank Henenlotter, visit some of the Brain Damage shooting locations. It's about 8 minutes and 48 seconds in length. Henenlotter discusses how they shot much of the film on sets instead of actual locations. This was due to the amount of mechanical effects, puppeting the Elmer puppet, etc. Gingold also visits the location of the restaurant sequence, the Flophouse Apartments, the junkyard, and the subway. Next up, we've got Tasty Memories, a brain damage obsession. It's about 10 minutes in length. It includes interviews with brain damage superfan Adam Skinner. Skinner discusses the first time he saw the film and how he fell in love with brain damage despite not being a real horror fan. He discusses scouring the net for all things brain damage and shows off some of his most prized brain damage collectibles he's procured over the years. He discusses releasing not one but 2 albums of music inspired by brain damage with his 2-man band entitled The Statutory Apes. That's a name right there. We also get some more delectable cuts from the Brain Damage album as well, and we get a special performance of, I think, 2 songs inspired by Brain Damage from the Statutory Apes. We get a Frank Henenlotter Q&A recorded at the 2016 Off-Screen Film Festival in Brussels. It's about 20 minutes and 30 seconds in length. Henenlotter discusses his inspirations for Brain Damage. He discusses the budget for the film. He discusses how New Line Cinema initially wanted to distribute the film, but then dropped out. He discusses casting Zachary to voice Elmer, but not being able to give him an on-screen credit because Brain Damage was a non-union film, and Zachary was in the Screen Actors Guild. Henenlotter discusses the location where they shot the film and called it Hooker Central, and that every morning when they arrived at the set, there were used condoms and crack pipes everywhere. Very nice Q&A with Frank Henenlotter, about 20 minutes and 30 seconds in length. We have Image Gallery's original theatrical trailer. We have Bygone Behemoth, an animated short by Harry Chaskin featuring a brief appearance by John Zachary in his final on-screen credit. We've got the isolated score. We've also got an audio commentary with Frank Henenlotter. I watched about 30 minutes of the movie with the commentary. Henenlotter discusses working with Zachary. He discusses a movie called Insect City, which he spent many years after Basket Case trying to develop. That movie fell through. Then Brain Damage came about. He discusses the decision to shoot the movie on a set over an actual location because of all the effects in the movie. He discusses the special effects in the film specifically, the art of guerrilla filmmaking. He discusses shooting sequences for the unrated cut. He discusses that he did something that at the time was totally unheard of. He shot a version that was intended to be R-rated for the theater. Then he shot additional sequences that were intended to be unrated that would be added to the VHS version of the movie when it was released so that they could have the unrated version of that on VHS as a selling point to sell the VHS of Brain Damage. But very nice commentary with Mr. Henenlotter. Arrow Video has rolled out the red carpet for Brain Damage. We've got a really nice commentary. We've got a great 54-minute making of all about Brain Damage. We've got some really cool extras on this disc. The picture quality and the sound quality are both superb, and Brain Damage, I cannot recommend it any higher. Really fun, really different kind of movie. If you've not seen Brain Damage, by all means, go out and watch it. This Blu-ray would be a great way to introduce yourself to the film. If you are a fan of Brain Damage, you definitely want to look into this release from Arrow. This is a Region A release, so it will play in Region A Blu-ray players in America, Canada, etc. This would be a great Blu-ray to add to your collection if you're a big fan of Brain Damage. If you've seen Brain Damage, please let me know what you think of it down in the comment section below. Let me know what your favorite Frank Henenlotter movie is down in the comments section below. If you like this video, please leave it a thumbs up. If you're not following me on social media, those links are in the description. They're also right around here. As always, thanks so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Take care, and until next time, peace. Say hello to the internet, Jeremy.
Hello to the internet.